nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America. I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. The American people have voted to make a new beginning. I want the American people to know today that I am still committed to working with people of good faith and goodwill of both parties to do what's best for our country.
William Jefferson Clinton, America's 42nd president, served from 1993 to 2001. He came from humble roots in rural Arkansas to become the third youngest person ever to serve as the President of the United States. While in office, he proposed a unique combination of both liberal and conservative ideas and presided over a decade of peace and economic well-being. But concerns about his business ethics and his impeachment by the House of Representatives made him not only one of the most popular, but also most controversial chief executives in American history. Hi, I'm Leanne Wilson at the Bill Clinton Library and Museum in Little Rock, Arkansas. William Jefferson Clinton was born as William Jefferson Blythe IV on August 19, 1946, in the small rural town of Hope, Arkansas. His mother, Virginia Cassidy Blythe, was a nurse and beautician. His father, William Jefferson Blythe III, was a heavy equipment salesman who was killed in a car accident 3 months before his son was born. They called the future president Billy, and when he was 4, his mother married again to Roger Clinton. In 1953, they moved to Hot Springs, Arkansas, where Billy began using his stepfather's last name, Clinton, when he enrolled in elementary school. In 1956, a stepbrother, Roger Clinton Jr., joined the family. But life in the Clinton household was not easy. Billy was close to his mother, but his stepfather sometimes abused the family. He later said that his early family life prepared him for the presidency because he became good at avoiding conflicts and solving disagreements. Clinton attended a private Catholic school for 2 years, then enrolled in public school where he showed a gift for politics. In high school, he was active in a variety of clubs and held many offices. He also played the saxophone in the school band, became band major during his senior year, and once considered becoming a professional musician. Bill Clinton was inspired by President John F. Kennedy, who he met on a field trip to Washington, D.C. in 1963. After graduation, he attended Georgetown University in Washington, where he helped pay for his education by working at the U.S. Capitol. After graduating Georgetown, Clinton spent 2 years as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University in England, then entered Yale Law School in 1970. At Yale, he met a fellow law student, Hillary Rodham. He and Hillary were married on October 11, 1975. 5 years later, they had a daughter, Chelsea. Clinton's first try at elective office came in 1974, when he was only 28. He ran as a Democrat for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives from Arkansas, but he lost that election. 2 years later, he won the Democratic primary for Attorney General and ran unopposed in the general election. 2 years after that, at 32, he became a candidate for governor of Arkansas and easily defeated Republican Lynn Lowe in the general election.
So help me God. So help me God.
As governor, Clinton proposed a wide range of programs and policies, but most of his plans met with little success. He ran for re-election as governor in 1980, but he was defeated. Undeterred, Clinton again made a run for the governor's office in 1982, convincing voters that he understood his mistakes and had matured. In the general election, Clinton won by 55% of the vote.
If victory is ours tonight, I have been given something that few people get in life, a second chance to serve the people.
In all, he was elected governor of Arkansas 5 times. Before long, his impressive wins combined with his liberal policies in youth brought William Jefferson Clinton to national attention. At the Democratic National Convention in 1988, he gave a speech nominating Michael S. Dukakis as the party's presidential candidate.
Michael Dukakis will never, never, never forget it.
Although Dukakis lost the election to George Bush Sr., Clinton had become a national political figure. Then, in October of 1991, he made the announcement that he would seek the Democratic nomination for president. As he entered the spring primaries, charges that he'd been unfaithful to his wife and dodged the draft during his college days dogged his campaign, but Clinton denied any wrongdoing. By July of 1992, he was named the Democratic presidential nominee at the party's convention in New York City.
In the name of the hard-working Americans who make up our forgotten middle class, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States.
He chose Senator Al Gore of Tennessee as his vice president. The Republicans renominated President George Herbert Walker Bush and Vice President Dan Quayle to run for a second term in the White House. Texas businessman Ross Perot also entered the race as an independent. Clinton went on to defeat both his opponents in the 1992 presidential race.
Maybe you didn't read the election returns. It didn't work out quite the way we wanted.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
On this day, with high hopes and brave hearts, in massive numbers, the American people have voted to make a new beginning. That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America. This is our time. Let us embrace it.
When he entered the White House, President Clinton concentrated on reviving a poor economy and other domestic issues. He appointed more women and minority members to his cabinet than had any previous president. He sent Congress a plan to reform the nation's health care system, a plan that was drafted in part by his wife, Hillary. He supported the Brady Bill, which restricted the sale of handguns, and a strong anti-crime law that spent billions of dollars on crime prevention, law enforcement, and prison construction. He also pressed for laws to keep young people from starting to smoke. But in October of 1995, Republican lawmakers failed to approve the money needed to fund some of Clinton's programs. Much of the federal government shut down for 6 days in November and for 21 days the following December and January. By 1996, he had created welfare reforms that shifted much of the responsibility of welfare payments to state governments. Finally, President Clinton called for an increase in the minimum wage, which Congress approved in August of 1996. In international affairs, President Clinton achieved one of his major foreign policy goals in November of 1993, when Congress approved the North American Free Trade Agreement. NAFTA, as it was called, gradually eliminated trade barriers between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The next year, Congress approved GATT, which called for large reductions in trade barriers among other nations as well. Late in 1995, Clinton helped bring about a ceasefire in the Bosnian Civil War, taking place in the former European nation of Yugoslavia. By August of 1996, President Clinton and Vice President Gore were up for re-election. The Republicans nominated Robert Dole of Kansas for president and Jack Kemp of New York for vice president. Ross Perot ran again under the Reform Party ticket. But Clinton's first administration was considered a success, and it came as little surprise that he was reelected.
Today, the American people have spoken. They have affirmed our course. They have told us to go forward.
He would be the first Democratic president since Franklin D. Roosevelt to win a second term. During his second administration, Clinton visited China, where he urged its leader to allow a greater degree of democracy. He also called for increased controls on nuclear weapons after both India and Pakistan began nuclear testing.
Save Social Security first.
In August of 1998, more than 3 years before the World Trade Center attacks and 9/11, he took the first steps in the war against terrorism when he ordered missile strikes against Osama bin Laden's terrorist training camps in Afghanistan. He also ordered missile strikes against Iraq because leader Saddam Hussein had failed to cooperate with the United Nations inspectors looking for weapons of mass destruction there.
We've seen massive flashes overhead.
Earlier today, I ordered America's armed forces to strike military and security targets in Iraq.
By mid-2000, the United States and Vietnam signed an agreement opening the way for trade relations between the two former enemies. But during his presidency, Clinton struggled several times to clear himself of charges of misconduct while he was governor of Arkansas. In what was called the Whitewater Affair, both he and Mrs. Clinton were accused of illegally selling their interest in a small Arkansas company that bought land for vacation home development. In 1994, a former Arkansas state employee named Paula Jones filed a harassment suit against Clinton. And then, during his second administration, there was the Monica Lewinsky affair. In December of 1998, the House of Representatives impeached Clinton for perjury and obstruction of justice for lying about his relationship with the White House intern named Monica Lewinsky.
My investigators work very hard and diligently to find relevant evidence.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong.
I want the American people to know today that I am still committed to working with people of good faith and goodwill of both parties to do what's best for our country, to bring our nation together, to lift our people up, to move us all forward together. It's what I've tried to do for 6 years. It's what I intend to do for 2 more until the last hour of the last day of my term.
The Senate found him not guilty in February of 1999, and he remained in office. However, by the beginning of 2001, term limits required that President Clinton step down from office. By January of 2001, George W. Bush had been appointed America's 43rd president, and on January 20th, took the oath of office. After 8 years in the White House, Bill Clinton retired as the youngest president since Theodore Roosevelt. He moved to New York State, where his wife Hillary became a U.S. Senator, and the former president worked for world peace and natural disaster relief. In early 2005, the Clintons presided over the opening of the new Clinton Library Museum in Little Rock, Arkansas. No one major accomplishment marked Bill Clinton's tenure in the White House, but during his 8 years in office, America enjoyed peace and prosperity. And in spite of his impeachment, Bill Clinton's ability to relate to ordinary people, his intelligence and wit enabled him to become one of the most popular and influential figures in American politics.